The biggest DIY project that I completed for our kitchen makeover was actually fabricating my own solid surface countertops. You might not be familiar with this type of countertop, but it's actually a really great material. It's 100% acrylic, and you might recognize some brand names of solid surface like Formica and Corian. This is basically a sheet that I got from solidsurface.com, as well as all the information I'm going to be sharing in this video I learned from their resources on their website. So if you want to tackle this yourself and my video doesn't cover something that you need to know how to do, solidsurface.com is a great resource. I'm Melissa from Welcome to the Woods, and I'm going to show you today how I made my own countertops from start to finish. This process took me about 11 full days of work, and the video is quite long, so I'm going to be splitting it into two parts. The first thing to do was set up a completely level workspace, and I did that using two sawhorses, long 2x4s, and then 1x4s running perpendicular. It's really important when you're working on countertops that your surface is completely level. Solid surface is really heavy, and so whenever you're moving it, you need more than a few people to lift and carry it. The first bit involved a lot of routering, and since I wasn't completely comfortable with that tool, I asked my grandpa-in-law to come help. The first thing we did was mark off the line of where we wanted our flush undermount sink to go. Then we used straight 1x4s to create a template for our router to run against. The router bit we bought was a nice Diablo flush bit, and so basically this had a bearing on the top that rode against whatever wood template we used to cut out exactly straight up and down flush whatever we needed removed. To say I learned a lot during this process is such an understatement. I was nervous taking on this scale of a project, but if I can do it, then you can too. If I'm inspiring you right now, click share on this video. Next, we cut out the hole for the faucet, measuring an inch away from the edge of the sink, and then using a smaller carbide drill bit to get a start. Then we used a hole saw bit to drill out the 1.5-inch hole for the faucet. Those specifications for both the faucet size and the sink just come with the product that you purchase. My countertop ended up being really long. It was like 139 inches, but we did have to cut off a little bit of length on the sheet, so I used my corded circular saw with a 40-tooth carbide blade to cut through this material. Any tools that you're going to want to use for this material would be similar to what you would use to cut an extremely hard wood, so you're going to want really nice, brand new sharp blades. This type of countertop does not use a picture frame 45-degree angle corner. Instead, you cut into a continuous sheet to create your corner, and you seam another sheet next to it. We did that by again creating a template with 1x4s and then running our router against it. For the other part of the L, I cut another sheet of the solid surface material just in the size that I needed, and this part is going to seam up to the other edge. Again, I had to build a support system next to the current counter that was completely level. I read online about getting a seamless joint by attempting a mirrored cut with my router, but since I was joining two factory finish completely straight edges, I decided to skip that step. Okay, so how we're going to get these two pieces together is by using a special type of adhesive for solid surface counters. Now, it's a two-part adhesive that hardens as it mixes together. So what we want to do is, of course, check its level and lay down wax paper to protect against drips. Then we're going to sand the seam and clean it with alcohol, with rubbing alcohol. Now we're going to squirt out some of the adhesive in that special gun because you want to make sure that it's mixing together as you squeeze, and run 2 1/4-inch beads along each side. You want to do 2 because you don't want any part to miss like some of the actual hardener or miss some of the actual adhesive. So it just kind of prevents there from being any weak spots. And then we're going to hot glue on these blocks so that I can actually clamp the 2 pieces of solid surface together and let it dry overnight. To protect that seam from underneath, I'm cutting a 4-inch wide piece of solid surface to attach with adhesive underneath the counter. Now, right now I'm running it on my table saw because you want the edges of this 4-inch piece to have a 45-degree angle, and this allows for heat dissipation from the surface of the counter. I will attach that later once I'm working on the drop edge. Okay, so the next day when everything's dry, I remove my clamps and I'm using rubbing alcohol again to squirt at the base of my blocks that I hot glued down for those clamps on the seam. And this just softens up that glue so that I can knock them free with a hammer. Using a succession of 100 grit and higher sandpaper and my random orbital sander, I go on the seam to get rid of the bubbles of adhesive that I had. Once it's totally smooth, then I'm ready to build up my drop edge and attach that seam plate. Now, the rest of my countertop fabrication will have to wait for another video because I'm already at 6 minutes, guys. So if you learned a lot, go ahead and share. And I can't wait to show you guys the other video rolling out later this week. Thanks so much for watching. Welcome to the woods. I hope that I really inspired you to get out there and DIY.